Hello to all you Patriots out there in podcast land, and welcome to episode 135 of Canadian Patriot Podcast, the number one live podcast in Canada. We're recording on Monday, May 21st, 2018.
I am Marty, hunter and sports shooter in rural Southern Ontario.
Gavin, business owner, gun enthusiast, hunter, atheist, and CCFR field officer for the GTA.
I'm Tim, husband, father of three, and the owner and operator of Tim's Good T-shirts. They're quite good.
As always, my name is Andrew. I'm a recovering libertarian, a competitive shooter, a firearms instructor at Ragnarok Tactical, and I have a discount code for listeners. If you're buying things at Ragnarok Tactical, use Patriot at checkout to save 5% on anything we sell.
And that is a steal. And, we'd love to hear your feedback about the show. So please visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com/feedback or email us at feedback@patriotpodcast.com. Tell us what you bought at Ragnarok. That'd be all right. Version of the show is available on Stitcher and iTunes.
You can check the podcast out on social media, Facebook.com/Canadian Patriot Podcast, or on Instagram, Instagram.com/Canadian Patriot Podcast. We basically just use social media to tell you when there's new episodes out. We don't really spam the social media very hard.
All right, and we need your help. Support the show. Visit patreon.com/CPP and become a Patreon. You can get the uncensored audio version of the show for just $1 per episode. That is apparently different from the current version you're listening to. The more you pledge, the better the rewards are. And as always, show you are not a communist by buying a CPP t-shirt. They're $19.99 plus shipping and theft. Visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com homepage and follow the link on the right.
All right. Before we do, what are we drinking? Every week, what are we drinking is brought to us by Arrowhead Coffee. Arrowhead Coffee is owned and operated by Canadian Armed Forces veterans. They love our country, the true north, strong and free, their family and friends. Join Arrowhead Coffee on their hunt for the perfect brew to raise morale and bring that feeling of home to you no matter where you are. A portion of all profits helps Canadian Armed Forces members, veterans, and their families. So now we do What Are We Drinking? Gavin, what are you drinking?
I am drinking Diet Ginger Ale. I imbibed a fair amount of alcohol yesterday, so I'm trying to not do that today.
I don't understand.
I was a little hungover this morning.
No, I mean, I understand that part. I just don't know why that's preventing you from drinking on the show.
Yeah, I didn't want to carry that hangover till tomorrow and delay it, because it never works well when you delay it.
Do you know what I do when I'm trying to get rid of a hangover?
Just keep drinking.
I eat a whole pack of room temperature chicken wieners.
That'll work out really well.
You should try that on air.
Please no. Tim, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking.
I'm worried.
Rickard's Red. Rickard's Red.
Okay.
And chicken wiener water.
Ew. Unpleasant. Marty, what are you drinking?
Sleeman Clear 2.
And how's that?
So this is the first one. It's definitely not good. But it fits within the keto macros with only 2 carbs. I can, it allows me to have a beer. At least
is
in
it
spirit.
Really a beer? That's
no, that's what I'm like. It's it's a beer in spirit. I just looked up the Beer Advocate. It's earned a healthy poor rating of 2.2 out of 5. There's multiple references. Hot. Yeah, actually, multiple references in the reviews to it tasting like wet newspaper. Accurate. One guy says that his wife will drink this and she doesn't drink beer.
At least you like to hear, yeah.
Yeah. So also seems accurate. I would agree that this is not a beer. So if you don't drink beer, you might like this.
I was thinking, first of all, it's amazing that they get it. Like, it's like 2 grams of carbs, right? And like 60
2 grams of carbs and 80 calories.
80 calories. But so that's amazing. Good for them for doing that. But it's like the inflatable blow up doll of like beers kind of thing. It's just not satisfying.
Yeah, just because we can doesn't mean we should.
It sounds truly terrifying.
In general, it mostly just tastes like water. Like, I feel like this is the water before the reverse osmosis.
So next time you'll just buy $42 worth of yellow food coloring here.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah.
That's, you know, it doesn't taste like wet newspaper. I made beer like 6 weeks ago, and I finally got around to bottling it, and it sat long enough that it carbed.
Chicken wieners.
And there's no chicken wiener in my beer.
Okay.
I have tasty summer ale homebrew. It tastes like summer.
Do you ever do any honey in your beer?
I have not done honey in the beer. I'm thinking about using honey as a carbonating sugar instead of just like right now. I'm just using like straight dextrose. It's not very exciting, but that's okay because it keeps the flavor like really, really even. So there's no surprises because I feel like honey could impart some interesting characteristics when it carbonates. I do want to start making some meads though, because I hear everything about mead is terrible, and I feel like I can fix that.
I would agree with half that statement.
Just needs the right man.
I figure if I Viking hard enough, the mead will taste just fine.
Yeah, but when I homebrewed, I made a couple of light honey ales, and they were, you could tell there's honey in them. They weren't unpleasant. It was nice. So I say go for it.
Where can I get some honey, Marty? Do you know anybody that has bees?
No, I know I don't right now.
Oh, that doesn't help me at all.
My hives this winter. Yeah.
All right. Well, I was hoping to help you with your honey problem, but it seems that that's no longer a problem.
He's got a different.
I got yeah, I got so new bees are coming in a couple weeks, but yeah, I lost all my hives this winter. It was
So, like,
in Ontario. In Ontario, we were looking at
internet, or?
Yep. Yeah, in Ontario, we were looking at like 70% hive loss this winter. It was rough.
What's average? What's normal?
Normal, like, it depends. So in Ontario, we tend to somewhat over report, but somewhere around 40% normally.
Okay. That's too bad, man.
Well, I
Yeah,
hope
I
you
know
get new
a
bees.
few guys that lost everything, but
Before we do the show, I have one other thing that's not in the show notes I want to talk about. Because I know we all had a very exciting weekend, especially everybody that was at Gavin's for his birthday, which he was quite inebriated at. I'm very proud of him for.
Oh, yes.
But
yeah, he wasn't the only one.
I wasn't that drunk this year.
I was relatively drunk.
I was way more wrecked last year. Oh, also shout out to Jeff's wife. Jeff's wife was wrecked. Capital R. But for our listeners, because we know most of our listeners own firearms or are interested in firearms, I'm very disappointed in everyone in Ontario that did not show up. Well, Southern Ontario, I suppose, the part of Ontario that matters, you know, the part where everybody lives, that didn't show up to CFB Borden on the weekend to shoot service rifle practice with the ORA. I had a lovely time shooting with like 10 other people. We had a 500-yard range to ourselves. It was a very pleasant day. But for everybody that's listening that has an AR, you really should consider shooting with the ORA and using your AR the way it was intended.
All right, here's an idea.
Okay.
Maybe make the announcement before the event has passed.
Yeah, at least a day before, not a day after.
Well,
yeah.
I don't do the service rifle.
Timing is everything.
I shoot the service rifle. I don't run the service rifle. And I don't need to advertise CQB because it's full. The discipline that I manage has plenty of people shooting it.
Is that the one where you run?
There is some running in CQB. There's a lot more running in service rifle.
Yeah, that's your problem right
But-
there. You got to get rid of that.
There's no running. There's no
Yeah.
running in CQB.
There's like 5-yard dashes.
Holy shit!
It's like 3 steps. It's almost running. It's near running. It's like your beer. It's near beer.
Yeah.
It's running 2.0.
It's there in spirit. Yeah.
That's right. All right, let's do the news. We got lots of news. The first one from the CBC. Mayor warns Toronto may need emergency center for refugees. Demands more support. This is a follow-up to last week when we said that Quebec was turfing all the refugees. I mean, not turfing, pardon me. Fast-tracking them to Ontario.
Oof.
So Mayor Tory has demanded for the second time in as many weeks that the federal government come to the aid of Toronto in the form of giving them money so that they can shelter more refugees in the city. Refugees are currently taking up something like 40% of the shelter space, and that number is expected to increase over the summer.
Yeah, but doesn't Toronto have high housing costs?
Yeah.
It does have a high housing cost.
So aren't they just gonna like put more burden on the poor people of Toronto who are already paying like too much for housing and shit like that by adding more people to the?
It's funny that you mentioned that because Adam Vaughan, the Liberal MP for Toronto, he says that the problem is not Toronto. It
usually is.
Well, I agree that it
Yeah,
usually is, but the quote
I'm
that I have
skeptical
from
of-
oh no, I am super skeptical as well, Marty. But the quote that I have from Vaughan is, it's not simply a question of Toronto being a bigger, stronger magnet. I disagree. I think the problem is exactly that. Toronto is a bigger, stronger magnet. People want to illegal immigrants, people that are because I don't understand why they're the terminology they use in the article is terrible. They're not refugees. These people are illegally entering our country. They are criminals, and they want to go to Toronto because Toronto is a big urban center. But Toronto is also a very expensive place to live, and Toronto doesn't have the shelter space for this. So Toronto wants more tax dollars from people that don't live in Toronto to support the refugees that they want in Toronto. This is very confusing.
Yeah, I'm also seeing this quote here from John Tory saying, the people of Toronto are generous, they are understanding, and they value our role as Canadians in accommodating people in their time of need. What is their time of need? They're fleeing a first world country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With no persecution.
Illegally.
Yeah, you're illegally entering Canada from the United States through a land crossing in Quebec. And if Torontonians are such generous people, why are they not paying for this? Why do they want federal tax dollars to pay for this?
Why aren't they sponsoring immigrants to do it
Really?
legally?
Yeah.
Really what they need to do is put an immigrant in put an illegal refugee, and what was the terminology they were using for them before? Irregular migrants.
Irregular migrants.
They should put an irregular migrant in every liberal Torontonian's home, and then they'll be able to use their generosity to effectively cater to these individuals that want to live in their large city. I think that's the way to go. So if you're, I don't know, an MP or a mayor, you get to do like 10 refugees, and if you're just a liberal in Toronto, you get like 1 refugee. I think that's a reasonable distribution of refugees.
That sounds fair. Yeah.
So, I mean, right now, this is the very beginning of this. Like, this is just starting. And yet, already, the city estimates it spent $64 million to provide temporary housing in motels for these people.
Yeah, again, people that are in the country illegally that we shouldn't be spending tax dollars on because they are not Canadian citizens. They have demonstrated a willingness to break our laws. Like, I can understand, like, at some point we need to help the people that want help and want to be Canadians. Like, the part where I'm torn is like, okay, so if they're landed immigrants, then do we start helping them? Well, and I'd be a lot more inclined to start giving gibs to landed immigrants or actual Canadians ahead of people that are irregularly migrating into my country illegally.
Yeah, and we, you know, like given past history, we can look forward to articles where migrants are saying, "Oh, all they do is put us up in this hotel room. We've been in this hotel room for 8 months. Like, hello, we feel neglected here."
Yeah, no one is asking you to be here. Like, if you want to immigrate to this country, there's a way to do that, and irregularly through illegal border crossing is not the right way to do it.
Like, there's people suffering like real persecution around the world. These people didn't get their way in an election.
Yeah, why are we not allowing the fast tracking of South African farmers into Toronto? I think that'd be. I mean, I don't think a South African farmer would want to live in Toronto, but
they want to live.
Yeah, I'd much rather give them temporary motel housing in Toronto until we can find them a farm to work on.
Yeah.
So the thing is that this is. They say, well, we don't have the shelter space to do this, so we need more funding. It's like, no, if you don't have the shelter space for what's coming in, then you shut down the border. You use the military to shut the border down, and that's it. Like, it was just this. They didn't correctly diagnose the problem because they're liberals, and to them this isn't a problem. This is like an opportunity, but this is a problem. You can't have like thousands of people like illegally entering your country. Something like no one on this panel would just go to another country and just start living there, and asking for handouts.
Yeah, this is starting to get pretty tempting.
Maybe a couple of years. I spoke too soon, but that's the thing. Like, we all know the problem is you got to stop them at the border. You don't just go for more funding.
No, absolutely. This is the one legitimate use of government, in my opinion, is to enforce domestic sovereignty. We should be guarding the borders. We have troops with machine guns that are trained to do that sort of thing. I don't see that there's any more legitimate use for government than to enforce that border. That is exactly what they should be doing, and very, very little else.
Yeah, pretty much the only thing they should be doing.
Well, yeah, domestic sovereignty is essentially the only legitimate use of government. All right. Nothing else on this one, guys?
No.
Okay. Let's go to another one. We've got Ottawa citizen Lindsay Shepherd's back in the news. Laurier free speech advocate Lindsay Shepherd honored in Ottawa. Before we do the body of the article, do you guys remember when she wasn't a free speech advocate and she didn't want anything to do with this and she was just trying to be a TA at Laurier? Because that wasn't very long ago, and now she's a free speech advocate, so that seems to have changed rather briskly.
Well, yeah, but her view of the world changed rather briskly. Yeah,
I agree.
One of us.
Yeah. I think she really saw what the hell the left is doing.
Yeah. She got to experience firsthand, the hatefulness of the left.
Yeah. For not even raising a contrary opinion, but just presenting it, just going, hey, here's two sides of something. Well, you can't do that. I mean, that's.
Yeah. And that's all it takes. Have one independent thought and you're going to be attacked and, demonized.
I really like the quote, and I wish there was audio from this, but the quote that I've got from her is, on the one hand, you had the general public who were completely supportive of my position and its implications, and then there were my fellow grad students who all of a sudden thought I was a transphobic, white supremacist Nazi and completely flipped. Is that not the most perfect dichotomy between your average Canadian and the liberals that work in post-secondary education? That is the perfect dichotomy of the differences between the average Canadian and someone in university education. This is what academia has become now.
Yeah, they must just be rapidly going insane in these little protected macrocosms of society, like or microcosms, like this little niche of a niche, and they just sit there and like my God, like Jordan Peterson, like they were like banging on the windows, breaking stained glass windows, and the one woman had a garrote in her pocket, for Christ's sake, when she was arrested. Like, it just, and all he's saying is like some pretty common sense shit. So
now, what scares me more is not that our universities have become this way; it's that our elementary schools are this way now as well.
No, everything.
And
the entire government-run system is becoming like this, and we, in my take on things, the government should have no business running any level of education, post-secondary, secondary, or elementary. Like, this is what the leftists are doing through their position of authority in government, through their position of authority in the school system. Stop them from doing this. Yeah, no, like abolish the entire government-run school system, because clearly they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, how do we do this a regular migrant thing? We gotta start. We gotta get on a map and try to pick a place that's worth going to.
I worry that there's nowhere worth going to any longer.
Yeah,
I think all of the corners of the map have been explored and are populated with shitty people.
maybe we can take over Sealandia or whatever.
I'd like something bigger than an oil rig, but all right.
It's a start.
Can we make our own island like the Chinese?
Probably.
We can probably make our own island. I don't know if we can make it like the Chinese. I feel like we have to abide by better labor code standards.
That's a good start.
Say what you will about communist China, at least it's an ethos.
Yeah.
You're already putting government restrictions on our building. Like,
It's not even built yet.
we haven't even named it yet.
We could call it Wakanda. Search result.
Gavandia.
Won't the existing Wakanda get upset?
It still entertains me that search results for Wakanda have rapidly increased since that Black Panther movie came out.
Okay, but like that makes sense that people are gonna be Googling it in general, but like hopefully not thinking that it's a real place. And that's the issue, is that there's a surprising amount of people that believe it's a real place.
It's the people that think it's a real place. Go on Alexia and look at like search result or search queries, like the queries against Google for things like Wakanda travel, Wakanda vacations. Look for those type of keywords and just watch the plateau that appears the weeks following the release of the film. Because apparently people using Google seem to think Wakanda is a place they can visit. Anyway, back to Shepard. I don't really want to read all of her quotes, but basically I'm glad that she has seen the error of her ways and has decided to no longer be as left-leaning politically as she was, because she's now scared of all the other leftists and their political correctness. All right, let's do another one. Globe and Mail. Ontario gets taken to the cleaners and casino deal. So there was hardly anything in the news about this. I think I saw 2 whole articles about it. One was in the Globe. Earlier this year, the Ontario Gaming Commission, GTALP, which is a partnership organization between 2 other gaming corporations, bought several casinos that used to be operated by the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation, the government agency responsible for gambling in Ontario. And at first I was all like, great, privatizing government assets. This is awesome. And then I saw that this new conglomerate corporation bought these casinos for approximately what they made in 1 year. That made me less happy. I don't understand how the government can sell an asset at the value that the asset would return in a year of operation.
I mean, these are people that think the budget will balance itself and that the more debt you have, the better off you are and things like that. So why would you think they would be able to value a company properly and get like a fair market rate for it? That's not in the scope of things that they're capable of.
No, you're right. I was disappointed in this because I was hoping like, yay, privatization of government assets. Maybe somebody will come in and actually run these casinos in a more profitable manner, and we'll like pay off some debt with it, or we'll be able to like offset some healthcare costs for the next 10 years. Or no, instead we're going to get $160 million, which is the same thing as what the annualized earnings for these casinos are before some of their deductions.
And then moving forward, we won't have those earnings either because we sold the asset off.
So now we don't have the asset to earn money, and we don't have money from the sale of the asset. So thanks, Ontario government. You've managed to screw us again.
So they purchased the bundle for $158 million. These casinos that were sold were performing well, profitably generating a gross gaming revenue of more than $1 billion in 2016. So we sold off basically a company with $1 billion annual revenue for $158 million.
So
yeah, but now we don't know what the difference is. Sorry, go ahead, Tim.
Was that profit?
Well, so it's a gross gaming revenue of $1 billion. So that is not profit. That is their gross gaming revenue. The amount that they sold them at is roughly the same as their annualized earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, which are a significant number of things on the expenses side of the equation. But I would still hazard a guess that these three casinos are making hundreds of millions of dollars because their annualized earnings before all of their odds and ends was like 160 million. So I would still think in terms of net profit, this is still like hundreds of millions of dollars annually that we're losing.
I mean, this is pretty good summary right here. So after purchasing it, their stock went up 36%, adding $840 million of market value to the company. So that gives you your implicit value of the acquired bundle at $1.7 billion. So since we only received $158 million for the bundle, the government left as much as a staggering $1.5 billion on the table. So that's the market, like the 1.7 billion, that is the market realization of the value of this bundle. That is what the stock went up with the increased valuation of that company due to this purchase. We got 158 million for it. That is insane. That is theft of
so like 8 or 9%.
Yes, 8 or 9. I don't understand why they would do this, because like, again, I'm all for like smaller government and privatizing government assets and not having government in control of as many things. But these three casinos that they sold were all doing well. They are making reasonable returns annually. They're due for some renovations, but the renovations would be pennies compared to what we lost in the short-term sale of this asset. And then we didn't actually make...
Guaranteed politicians or something like the teachers union owns shares in this company.
Oh, I'm sure you're right. It baffles me how the government would allow this. Well, I shouldn't say that. It should baffle me, but it doesn't, because I understand how the government in Ontario operates. And this is their MO. Like this is the same move they pulled 15 years ago with the 407.
Yeah, the OPSU pension has an incredible track record. The investment company that runs that.
The other thing that worries me about this is other pending government privatization efforts that are pending. They've talked about privatizing the LCBO again. They've talked about privatizing Ontario Power Generation again. And they've talked about privatizing eHealth again. And on the face of it, I'm all for privatizing government assets because these shouldn't be things that the government is in sole ownership of in the first place. But if we're going to throw away casinos for literal pennies on the dollar, what are we going to throw away the LCBO and OPG and eHealth for? Like,
yeah, I'm for privatization, but not for privatization when they've already created a monopoly, because that's just so set up for abuse.
Right? Like this doesn't.
Like at least with the government, there's like some sort of control and shit like that, and like you can pretend that you get to vote every 4 years and make a difference and that shit. But like it's. I don't know. It's not like cell companies where you can just call up another energy supplier in Ontario and say, well, screw you. I'm going to go to these guys. Like, it's just, there's not really a whole lot of options,
No, I mean, the hydro company in your area is the hydro company, and that's who you get to deal with. And they're all governed through OPG because that's who's making the electricity. Like, the LCBO is the only place, I mean, sort of the only place to buy liquor in Ontario. I mean, there's kind of the wine and beer in grocery stores in select places now, and there's the beer store, which is a government-sanctioned monopoly owned by the Brewers Union. But where are you going to buy your wine or your liquor if you're not buying it at the LCBO? Because the LCBO is still in control of distribution for the grocery stores. So you're still getting government-approved alcohol through a third party. Like,
yeah, and then you're getting taxes on taxes, and that grocery store has to pay the hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for the licensing and create a special department for it. Like, it's just really not,
No, I mean, I'm all for smaller government, but this is the most asinine way to go about it. Could you imagine if we had that asset on the even if these three casinos only made $200 million a year in revenue, that's still $200 million a year we could put against the budget to help pay for the increasing costs in healthcare or teachers unions. This is such a short-sighted, terrible move by our government. I'm not surprised. I wish I were. I think disgusted is probably the right word. I'm disgusted by the action of our government.
Now, should we also be not surprised about the lack of media coverage this has?
I don't think we should be. I mean, like, I found this as an opinion piece in the Globe and Mail. There was like one other outlet that covered it, maybe the National Post. There's basically no information about this acquisition by this third-party company that's taken over these three casinos, because I don't think the government wants it to be in the media. So it's just not in the media because all of these elitist leftists are colluding.
But the sale happened a while ago, and it's just the details are coming out now. So nobody cares
the sale happened in January,
really
the disclosure
anymore because the deal was done.
Right.
Yeah.
But who has the why? The thing I don't like, if you look at it, why does someone have the authority to be able to just make a stupid sale like that with a publicly owned?
Somebody just stole $1.5 billion worth of assets from the taxpayer. It's gone.
And they will
just stole $1.5 billion.
Yeah, and they'll keep their job and they'll keep their pension.
Nobody cares because nobody knows this is going on. Like, the average person in Ontario hasn't heard this is happening, and it doesn't directly impact them, so they aren't interested in finding out about it. Like our listeners will find out about it because I happened to see it and went, that doesn't make any sense. And then started looking at the math and went, that really makes no sense.
But like even we don't know like who decided this was good and said it was okay to go ahead.
Some unnamed government bureaucrat. I bet this isn't even done by an elected body. I bet this is literally just the bureaucracy.
Yeah, someone at OLG even.
Oh, it would have to be someone at OLG because they would be the people that would review the bid package, I'm sure, because it's a gaming asset, so it would have to go through OLG.
All right, I'm angry enough. Let's move on.
I am also angry. Well, this won't make you happier, but let's go to the National Post.
Yeah, but just one last thing on that thing. Even if we had known it was going to happen and could see the numbers, then we could have chosen to, like, if you were savvy enough, kept your ear to the ground and knew what was going on, you could have invested in this gaming company. If you could have said, holy shit, they're selling this like at an absurd price, we could have invested in that gaming conglomerate. You know, like perhaps Morneau Chappelle got to invest in that. Perhaps the Ontario Public Teachers Union was able to invest into that, but we certainly didn't get to invest into that.
I'm sure there were definitely people that made some savvy business moves.
Oh yeah, because it makes no sense.
This knowledge.
It makes no sense.
Yeah.
So someone made a lot of money.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, not the Ontario taxpayer.
No.
All right, let's do the next one. National Post. Smarter, more capable Kathleen Wynne makes it difficult to see her lose.
I don't.
So,
take it.
First off, before I even get into the article, is Kathleen Wynne doing labor in a unionized shop?
No, she's holding a tool next to a thing that you hold a tool near.
Okay, first of all,
it says she's putting in rivets.
Yeah, but who the hell let her on that shop floor wearing a wristwatch and earrings? Like, who let her in there wearing jewelry? She doesn't have any personal protective equipment on. She has no like safety goggles. You know.
Yeah, I think this is a scab worker here taking the job of a union worker.
Why would she do that to them?
Someone should have at least given her a mouth guard to protect the ivory.
Holy shit. That's our most
on
resource.
That. Yeah. That's my second comment is the photo here of the author, Christy Blatchford. I mean, I'm not saying that she's directly related to Kathleen Wynne, but looking at the photo, I think it's safe to say that she enjoys her popcorn as well.
Quietly in a library somewhere.
Yes.
I don't get Christy Blatchford. I don't know why she it just seemed really strange that she was writing this. Sometimes she like does an oddball piece and sometimes she'll write a few in a row and I'll just go, yeah, it's about time someone said this shit. But this one, I really don't think I don't think that anyone Kathleen Wynne's popularity is still like low, to be generous.
Not according to Blatchford. Like the way that this article reads, you would think that she's in first place in the polls, specifically because they mention the polling results, right? Like there's a growing consensus that Ford wouldn't be good for the province as the polls reflect. No, I have not seen a single poll that is to that effect. I'm sorry, you're wrong. Like this is from May 16th. Every poll I saw last week showed the Conservatives at or ahead of the Liberals, and the Liberals had lost votes to the NDP mid last week.
Because some people think we're not going into debt quickly enough.
Well, but that was the thing. It was like the Conservative numbers early to mid last week, the Conservative polling numbers didn't increase, but the Liberal number dropped and the NDP gained. Like, I don't know what polls this author is looking at, but they're not the same ones that are being published in the National Post or anywhere else in Canada that I can find.
The thing is, like, I'm not a huge Doug Ford fan, and you can't say, like, he doesn't come off as a really intelligent guy, but God damn it, like, if he's the only one up there who knows enough to cut a goddamn budget, then he's got to be voted in.
Well,
you don't need to be a genius to say we're going stupidly into debt.
I don't have this in the stack, but there was an article that I just saw earlier today that showed the NDP proposed budget for their platform had a math error of $1.4 billion on it. Like the NDP can't even get their draft budget together to run their election platform. And then,
like, if Doug Ford, if his entire campaign policy was, anytime there's a decision that needs to be made, I'm going to call up Kathleen Wynne and ask for her advice, and then do the opposite. Like, that's a pretty solid strategy. I'd vote for that.
yeah, I agree. Do the opposite of what they've done for the last 15 years in Ontario and see how it goes.
Sounds good. Or, just don't do anything.
Yeah, literally doing nothing at this point would be better. But I don't know.
We'd have a bunch of casinos.
Yes, we would.
Yeah.
We'd certainly have 3 more casinos than we had before. I don't know. I think that Wynne is very desperate at this point. She's I don't know, using a new stylist. I don't know. If you see the media coverage that she's in lately, you'll notice that she's wearing different clothes than she normally wears, and she stopped wearing glasses. She's wearing contacts now. So she's trying to appeal to that younger audience with those more riveting looks, I suppose.
Well, yeah, it's funny. The Liberals are scrambling to change. They got to change their image, and there was even I can't find it now, but I think you guys saw it. There's a Liberal running for MP or MPP, and she's like, she doesn't even have the Liberal colors or logo on her signs. It just says, "Hi, this is my name, and I'm running for this." But she's a Liberal, but she doesn't want to be.
There's a bunch of ridings that have Liberal candidates in them that have that. That is,
you know what?
Like a common
that could work
thing now.
That could work. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think that's a great strategy because it is not a winning policy at this point to be associated with the Liberals. They have not had a successful track record the last 15 years they've been in government in Ontario. I'm surprised that Wynne has stayed in government as long as she has. And I mean, she makes it sound like even her own party doesn't want her there, which I could understand that. But I don't know. She seems to be having a pissing contest with how do you say this woman's name? Hayworth? Horwath, yes. The NDP leader. Like, I guess this, I don't know. The media must think that this is going to be a duel in Ontario between the NDP and the Liberals, and I don't think that's the case. Maybe in Toronto, maybe like the Golden Horseshoe, maybe the GTA. Is it going to be orange or is it going to be red? But I think the rest of Ontario is going to be solidly blue.
You don't think it's going to go to the Freedom Party?
You know what? I saw the Freedom Party stuff for the first time today, and I think they have about as much chance of getting a riding as the Libertarian Party does in Ontario.
I have to say, from what I've seen, which I also only saw that we have a candidate running in my area, so I saw it a couple weeks ago, maybe a week or so ago, and I did a quick Google of it. It looks better than the Libertarians.
I don't know. It looks a lot like the Libertarians to me, but just with larger text. Their website is not slick. Yeah. I don't like.
No, their website is. Their website is offensively bad. Like it's hard on the eyes.
Yeah, freedomparty.on.ca. You guys need to get a new web guy because, like, I don't know what you're doing, but I've made better websites than this. Sorry, this is.
Ooh, yeah.
See, it's bad.
Yeah. Oosh.
Hey, there's Jordan Peterson.
I don't know what their stance is on firearms, so that's my only.
Well, it should be like you can buy them, like all of them.
It should be based on what I'm seeing from a lot of the other stuff. It seems they'd be, fine with that. But I just haven't seen any.
Well,
I haven't seen any official verbiage on it.
Yeah, if you have a party called the Freedom Party and you aren't like full, wide open gun ownership. Then
suppressed full auto short barreled rifle machine guns for everyone.
Then why even have a Freedom Party? Like,
exactly. It's not much of a Freedom Party without those things. Yeah.
They do specifically mention property rights in their platform, which is interesting because I think they're the only. The Libertarians might mention property rights, but none of the big three do. I don't know. I don't think I'll be voting for the Freedom Party. I think I live in a solidly blue riding, and I'd like it to stay that way. Not because I think they're necessarily the best party, but because they're the least obnoxious party to my interests.
Yeah,
you know.
I am happy to see now that now that all the signs are out. My street, I haven't seen one single red or orange sign on someone's lawn. It's all blue signs.
I have seen red and orange signs, but only on public lawn, like public grass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a single red one on someone's lawn. It's encouraging.
The Liberal candidate from my riding works for the United Way and has for a long time. And I've butted heads with her on Facebook a lot of times because, she's super left. But it's just... But it's funny. I think she was in charge of the Wyerton Willie festival once in Wyerton and blew the whole budget on like a $12,000 Wyerton Willie furry costume.
And we know people that'll do that for free.
Yeah. So, I don't know.
I look forward to the election. We're only, 2-3 weeks away? It's June the 7th, and that's like 3 weeks.
Thank God the election cycle is short here.
It is a good thing. If this went on for longer, I mean, I don't know how much more of weaning a factory I can take. It's probably the closest she's ever actually been to work.
Yeah,
I mean, how many union worker jobs can she take away, right?
Yeah, her next photo op is going to be her in like a blue denim thing with like a red bandana in her hair.
Like, it's bad enough that her policies have like caused so many like blue collar jobs to be shipped out of this province. Then after decades, a decade and a half of bad policy, she then literally goes right into the factory and takes their job one at a time. Like that's
maybe she's trying to get some on the job training so that after the election she has something to fall back on.
She has about $1.5 billion in gaming stock to fall back on, I guess.
Yeah.
I demand Thunderdome. If she wants my job, she can fight me for it.
I'd pay to see that.
I feel like that would do well on pay-per-view. I mean, it's probably as good as that MMA or boxing fight.
Yeah.
All right, let's do another one. I'll let you guys ponder for a moment. You can tell me whose side we're supposed to take in this. We've got a CTV News article. Human rights application launched against Windsor body waxing business by transgender woman. Wait for the twist. Wait for the twist. So jumping way ahead, the other side of this complaint, so the applicant is the transgender woman who was denied body waxing service. They wax her, I think that's the correct job title, of Muslim persuasion. Now, whose side do we take?
What I love
who's
so much...
who's the most oppressed? I mean, that's ultimately they need to have a. Maybe they should make a game show where it's like who's the most oppressed. They compete in a series of events to determine who is the most oppressed.
Well, yeah. What I loved about this was the struggle and people trying to play Jenga with the whole victim hierarchy of the left, and it's just like, okay, you have a transgender person who's refused service for waxing,
but a male.
Well,
that's got to go against. That's got to go against them.
Yeah,
well,
male.
They're a transgendered woman, so
yeah,
that at least negates their white man card status that they would normally have had.
Yeah, and like this
okay, it negates it.
Yeah, this man says they're a woman, so they're a woman now legally in Ontario.
So I would say this: it negates their male status against a male, but does it negate it against an actual female?
Ooh,
Allegedly.
good question.
I don't know.
Oh, you think there's some leftover maleness that reduces their victim status?
Right. So if this was a complaint against another man, then yes. And I mean, the complaint kind of is, because really it was the manager of this waxing salon, parlor. I don't really know what the correct parlance is for this establishment. Although I do enjoy the name. It's Mad Wax, which is hilarious.
Speaking of Thunderdome, yeah.
So, all right, let's just kind of do a quick synopsis of what happened here. So, the transgendered individual, called
suffers from gender dysphoria.
Yeah, called in to Mad Wax and
great name.
Asked whether transgender women were welcome for waxing services. So the person on the phone didn't know. The manager said the manager would follow up. The manager followed up and advised they do not provide waxing services to men, and that his waxer is a Muslim woman who is not comfortable waxing male parts. So this is not like, they went there and there's a big scene. This guy called in, asked if transgenders could get waxing. He advised, we're sorry, we don't provide waxing service for men. This is the reason why. We're out of respect to my employees' beliefs. We don't do this. He then filed a human rights, claim for $50,000 due to immense harm to his dignity.
I appreciate you using the correct pronouns for this entire thing. This has been good. We're the next ones on the list to get this $50,000 application.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
the application itself is amazing. So the Human Rights Tribunal for Ontario, the actual application is refusal to provide me with leg waxing services because I am a transgender woman, and they're disclosing my name, gender identity, and personal information to various media outlets has left me feeling threatened, exposed, with my rights violated in terms of seeking services as a woman in the Windsor, Essex community. So you're not a woman in the Windsor, Essex community. You're someone who suffers from gender dysphoria. And the internet, and I couldn't find anywhere where Carruthers, the manager, it was actually as far as I can tell, the owner of Mad Wax, he hasn't publicly posted their information, and I can't find it in any other news article. So as far as I can see, the individual that suffers from the gender dysphoria has not been named, because I put in some solid Google to try and find it and couldn't.
Well, I mean, that would be a stupid result
of the suit.
Right? So, that's the thing is now, I don't know how it works in the human rights thing, like the Human Rights Tribunal for Ontario. If this was like Ontario Superior Court, the applicant name would be listed as well as the respondent's name. So we already know Carruthers would be the respondent. So if this were Ontario Superior Court, 100% the applicant's name would be on the application. And then that's a matter of public record. I don't know how it works with the Human Rights Tribunal for Ontario. I have not had the misfortune of having to deal with that particular branch of our bureaucracy. I hope to continue that trend. But it would stand to reason to me that it would still become a matter of public record, right?
So I just went to Mad Wax, and I'm looking at
how was the service?
Their price list. And can this guy even get, they have a lady's chin wax for $12, which they could probably use on occasion, and a lady's chest wax, but it still says ladies. Are they even allowed to get their chin and chest waxed? Or is it just because they got penis and testicles at the top of their legs? Is that what's?
Yeah, it seems like that's the issue.
Okay, so this person can get the ladies' chin and chest wax.
As it often is with a transgender woman, it's the penis that's the problem.
Yeah, I remember an article about
that what
salon in Toronto, clothing optional salon.
I don't know. It seems pretty clear to me on their website that, like, it says that due to staffing limitations, they don't do dudes.
Yeah.
It's kind of right at the top of their website.
Totally acceptable for a private business to decide to provide services to or not to.
Well, it should be.
I mean, this person could easily have gone elsewhere rather than creating a stink about it. Like, why even bother calling?
Because if
he's going to get
$50,000.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, that's just going to that comment. Like, how much do you want to bet this guy just called every business possible, from bakeries to Mad Wax, and said, "Do you provide services to transgenders?" Until he hit one, and he's like, "Payday."
Yeah, but
hooray for living in a litigious society.
Yeah, it's just like when a lesbian couple in the States like finds a bakery like 67 miles away and drives past like 12 other bakeries to ask, to demand a gay wedding cake.
Yeah,
it's just they're looking, okay. They're sitting there as soon as you like create like hate speech and whatnot and these human rights and people. Then you've basically armed someone who generally wasn't on wasn't in the majority. You've given them a weapon, and these people will then go take it, and they'll find creative ways to apply this weapon for various reasons. But I would hazard to say that this person probably felt threatened, exposed, and with their rights violated before they called Mad Wax.
I mean, I feel threatened just having had read about it.
Yeah, that's why I'm surprised they even bothered calling and didn't just show up to the place with like a full-on media team.
Yeah, with a freaking what's that?
No, if you show up,
the Huffington Post.
That's a Showing up takes a bit of work, a bit of agency. It's easier to just call it around until you find someone that says no.
Yeah, and then you show up.
You're not going to put in any work for your $50,000.
You make a good point.
Not with hairy legs.
Can't go out in public with hairy legs.
That's why I wear pants. All right, let's do the last one. We've got another NDP thing from the Red Star. Andrea Horace says NDP would not allow beer, wine sales at corner stores. In things that don't shock me, the NDP says that if they get into government, they will continue to perpetuate the nanny state because Ontarians are not responsible enough to buy liquor, wine, and beer in convenience stores, only from government-approved outlets.
In case you forgot along the way, here's your reminder: the NDP will always choose union over the public.
Well, this time it's a public sector union. Isn't that fun? Yeah. So campaigning last week in Thunder Bay, Horrat. Can this woman not get a name that I can pronounce?
Just call her Whore.
Andrea. Yeah, so they're going to go where's the quote that I wanted? I'm going to be straight up about it. Get it? It's a cocktail joke. Straight up means that it's just the liquor with nothing else. I'm going to be straight up about it. I don't think we need to have beer and wine in corner stores. I don't think this is a broken system in Ontario. I don't necessarily think that we need to mess with it. It's working fine for people. And she later goes on to say that it's more than just accessibility, it's social responsibility. The social responsibility piece is important because it's not like we allow convenience stores to sell any other controlled substances. We definitely can't allow them to sell alcohol because they sell tobacco. So,
yeah, but the thing is, it's a lot more moral if you buy your alcohol from a unionized employee than it is from an independent business person.
Is that what the trick is?
Yes, yeah, that's my
This-
understanding of the NDP policy.
But two things at least bother me about this. One is the assumption that the general populace is going to become raging freaking alcoholics if alcohol is available at all times. Like you can't go during hours and buy 6 cases of beer every day. You know what I mean? There's no limit for that. You just got to do it within the operating hours. So like,
But
it's bullshit.
okay,
But
so I mean,
yeah, and the second one is convenience stores have a better track record of selling age-restricted products than the union shops in studies.
yes, because if the LCBO gives out liquor to people with invalid ID or no ID or are in fact underage, there are no repercussions. They just have to go through those employees have to go through a retraining program. If a convenience store clerk sells cigarettes to an underage party, the cigarette or the convenience store loses their ability to sell cigarettes. So the consequences are a little bit more extreme for the non-unionized party.
Well, and from personal experience, I could definitely say that, yeah, it is very true. I've bought liquor at the liquor store underage multiple times. I attempted to buy cigarettes at unsuccessful times.
Yeah. I can say I allegedly bought alcohol at the LCBO on a business liquor license underage.
Yeah. This is
amazing.
I'm not going to do anything to incriminate anybody on the show, but like this is the problem anecdotally with government run everything. Like when was the last time you went to a government provided service and was like, I had a great experience at the Department of Motor Vehicles, hospital. Like take your pick of government agencies and they're like, this was a great, like nobody ever has a good time dealing with the government. Well, that's not true. I have had good interactions with my municipal government employees. But
one of the things I like from this article is talking about, selling beer and wine sales in local stores. Talks about this idea, a perennial favored, if never implemented idea that once helped propel the Liberals to office in the mid-1980s. So they've been dangling that carrot since the 80s, and people are still voting for it.
Yep. I don't know what to do with these people. Most of them are very loud and sound like helicopters, but it makes me sad.
But this is like, if you take this person believes that the only reason, again, like if the only reason that people are responsible and not raving alcoholics driving around drinking or driving, doing all sorts of terrible shit is because of the fact that we buy beer through a government monopoly. You don't want these people in charge, or you imagine the implications for like firearms owners.
Yeah, well, okay. So going back to what you were saying earlier, then a lot of agency. So I happen to have a lot of alcohol in the house. So I'm not likely to have to go and buy 6 cases of beer if I want to get drunk today. But there's nothing stopping me from drinking the 6 cases of beer I have in my storage room. So I'm not really sure what going through the government agency is going to do to stop me. And I'm at the point where I'm drinking my own beer, in which the government had little to no interaction with my procurement of. So what is this doing to stop people from getting controlled substances?
But again, there's just so many people in government in like public sector jobs that are just like they can't believe that people can get by without like some sort of government control, and it's just like they're the ones lowering the bar.
I think we would be much better off with less government control, like much better. I mean, it might take a generation or two for the effects to like fully stabilized, but I think in general we'd be a lot better off with a lot less government.
Well, yeah, like you look at Ontario. Let's say Doug Ford got in and he cut teaching and hospital, like public health and all sorts of shit because he had to. It's like the Liberals could have made common sense cuts for 15 years. They didn't. So now Doug Ford's going to have to cut in. He's going to have to cut a lot of shit. And people are like, the unions will be pumping out ads like crazy, attack ads on him. Oh, he cut this and cut that. He doesn't care about your kids. Well, you know what? I'd have to say that the Liberals don't give a damn about your kids because they're the ones running up the debt. Like shit, when the Liberals came in became elected in Ontario, I think the average federal provincial debt was like $8,000 per person. Now it's like 21. It's
Speaking of what I always hate is like oh, he's going to cut the budget. That's going to mean the police and the hospitals and the schools are going to be all affected. You're not going to have that. It's like, well, how come anytime anybody says you're going to have to cut spending, you say it's going to come out of the police and the schools and the hospitals? But all of the additional spending that was announced over the last 15 years, none of it went to the schools, the police, or the hospitals.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would actually be okay if we defunded all of these things. Because,
agreed. I'm just like, that's the scare tactic that's always being used. And it's like, well, if that's not what you guys, if that's not what all the additional spending was spent on, then why is that where you assume the cuts are going to come from?
So many other government expenses that could be cut, but those are the ones that they worry about. Like maybe they're going to cut back on like the number of times we cut the lawn, in public areas. Right? Like that's not going to affect anybody, but that could save money. But nobody's worried about that because, we're going to cut the police. Like it's ridiculous.
You can't say that we're going to cut the police. I'll get a phone call and we don't have the legal team to support that.
But like one of my favorite quotes from Thomas Sowell, like one of my favorite economists, is he's talking specifically about public health care, but it applies to all public run sectors in Canada and Ontario. And he says, it's amazing that people who think we cannot afford to pay doctors, hospitals, and medication somehow think that we can afford to pay for doctors, hospital, medication, and a government bureaucracy to administer it.
Yeah. That's one wise dude. Very woke.
Like you fire up your Sunshine List, and like in my area, it's the Blue Water School Board. You can type in the Blue Water School Board for that's the school board for, again, like the Grey and Bruce counties, maybe another county. I'm not exactly sure, but you just line up all those employees from like the top down for wage, and you just go and go and go and go for pages until you finally get a teacher. It's just like, what are these people doing? Like all you had to do, like once they had everything established, you don't have to reinvent the wheel every goddamn year.
Yeah. Nobody has an answer to that.
Yeah.
Because nobody knows.
Yeah.
I don't understand why we feel that like the whole teachers are heroes and are undervalued thing doesn't make sense to me. I'm glad there are not more teachers on the Sunshine List. I wish there were less bureaucrats on the Sunshine List. Right? Like none of these people that are getting hundreds of thousands of dollars working in government would get hundreds of thousands of dollars doing literally anything else.
Here's the thing. Teachers aren't undervalued because there's thousands of unemployed teachers trying to get teaching jobs. So if there's someone that's willing to step in and take over your job immediately, you're not undervalued.
Yeah, but they're in a system that is completely screwed over by like government manipulation. Like the government is so screwed at that market with the teachers unions and whatnot. It's a pretty sweet deal.
Yeah, it is. I mean, if you can get in and do it, I don't fault.
Yeah, you get a job as a teacher. It's a sweet deal. Like it's summers off and pensions and early retirement. It's
it's
a sweet gig.
Good work if you can get it, but I don't think we should be paying people to do this at the rate that we're paying them, and we certainly shouldn't be promoting this to thousands of students every year to fill dozens of available jobs.
Yeah, but also, shit. With the someone else is going to have to take over.
Yeah, like one of the things that's frustrating, I'd say, from the teacher side of things is like any unionized situation, is that our teachers are being rewarded, and like their salaries and all that are based on how long they've been there, not on how on how well they perform. And that's kind of always the thing that I find that the struggle with is a shitty teacher, once they're in, they're a shitty teacher for life, and they don't have to worry about it. They don't suffer the consequences of being a shitty teacher.
Yep,
and they're going to get their pay raises, and they're going to. So it's these are the people that we're having teaching our kids. I want the best of the best in that role, and we don't have a mechanism in place to make so that the best and the best rise to the top, and they're the ones that are teaching.
I'd be okay with that if I could choose to employ them as some sort of an independent contractor. I don't like that some government bureaucrat gets to make those choices, and that's just well, this is who teaches the 8th grade in your city. There's these 3 teachers at these 3 schools, and that's it.
And you can only send your kid to one of those schools.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. I would much rather be able to contract with these people individually and be like, oh, you speak 6 languages and I want my child to learn one of them. I will pay you some sum of money and you can teach my child one of these many languages.
Yeah, but that's part of the government's screwed system that we're in Canada. Is if you choose to do homeschooling or private schooling, you do not get a tax rebate. You get no tax rebate for that at all. Everyone in Ontario, it pays taxes that go towards education, whether you have a child or not, and whether you use a public education school or not. And the whole premise was that everyone benefits by having a society with more or less intelligent people. But you see what's happening with the education system. You have snowflake children doing meltdowns and shit like that. You get grades dwindling so bad in math that in the public sector unions, the teachers union solution was to change the way they were graded.
Yeah, but those kids know all about fisting now, so they can get a good career with that knowledge.
Yeah, you want to. Yeah, who cares about math and whatnot as long as you know about analingus.
Yeah, this is a problem that we face. My child is very small, but will eventually have to go to school, and while it would require my wife or I to not go to our jobs or to have some sort of a different part-time employment to be able to homeschool, we don't get those tax credits. But I'm hesitant to put a child into the leftist indoctrination center for 6 hours a day for the next 18 years. So that I don't think our schools are building good, productive members of society. They might be making decent proletariat, but they're not making good, productive members of society. The people that are coming out of these institutions have no life skills. They have no coping mechanisms. We have to give everyone a participation trophy for just showing up. I don't want my child to have that. I want my child to get a trophy because they won and they crushed their enemies. They saw them driven before them. They heard the lamentations of their women.
But that's the thing.
That's what you get a trophy for.
Yeah.
What? A skull trophy.
But they can wash their hands of that and say, well, that's your job. You're with them this much time. And then on the other hand, they drop down and make a junior kindergarten and a senior kindergarten. They take them a year earlier. So.
Well, absolutely. I don't know what the solution is to this problem, but more government is almost certainly not it.
It might sound like a wood chipper.
It probably does sound remarkably like a wood chipper. It's if you haven't signed petitions, go sign petitions E1608. It's not moving. Please go make it move. Print letters, send them to your MP if you want templates. oneclearvoice.ca. They have all the stuff. If you haven't registered for the 8th annual Canadian Firearms Podcaster Charity Network shoot as yet, you should go and do that. July 5th to the 8th. It's going to be in Restigouche, New Brunswick. The proceeds of the charity go to the Dalhousie Regional High School breakfast program because government schools can't take care of themselves.
Shocking.
Now you keep telling people to register. Is there registration?
I don't know. Talk
I don't
to
believe it is.
email slamfireradio@gmail.com. Honestly, I think on the actual charity shoot, it's just a matter of show up. I think
Exactly. That's my point. Yeah. And anything else that's not that, they're full.
Yeah.
So
sorry, guys. There's no spaces left. We have no rapid fire feedback this week. I do want to say thank you to the people on the YouTubes, and I have to agree with Patrick. I have a drop just for Patrick somewhere. I don't know where it is.
The solution is a Starship Troopers-like military model where you have to serve to get franchised.
That's for Patrick. Thanks for watching on YouTube. All right, where can everybody find you on the internet? Gavin, where can everybody find you?
Best place to find me on the internet is on the Instagrams at the Urbex_GTA.
And Tim, where can everybody find you?
You can find me on facebook.com/Tim'sGoodT-shirts.
And Marty, where can everybody find the show?
CanadianPatriotPodcast.com/feedback or email us at feedback@CanadianPatriotPodcast.com.
Cool. You can find me at Ragnarok Tactical, RagnarokTactical.ca. If you're listening to the show and you want to buy some first aid supplies or high-speed gear products or soon-to-be gun parts, we have some gun parts that are coming into stock. Use discount code Patriot at checkout and save 5%. I have to apologize to Rod Giltaca. We could not fit him onto the show this evening. We look forward to having Rod on a future episode. And for all of our listeners out there in podcast land, I'd like to remind you that you are the true North, strong and free.